So I just finished feeding the kids and I'm going to a class where I'm going to learn about preserving things, fruits, vegetables, whatever they're going to teach us. And I'm excited to learn. This is part of why I even started my channel. I wanted to talk about is city girl in the country and learning the different things here that I never experienced at home. So Rebecca is actually spending time with Carrie, which I had mentioned in a different video where I had the grandma, grandson day. But anyway, I'm headed now to this class. And I'm going to take notes for Rebecca too. She is really interested in learning these things as well. So hopefully we'll be able to do more classes together. So I will film later on about what I learned. So I just got back from the class that I took tonight that was on preserving, and for some reason I was thinking it was mainly just going to be talking about canning, and canning was one of the things they talked about, the first thing they talked about, but they also talked about freezing versus freeze drying, also dehydrating and fermenting, and I really don't know anything about really any of those things and how-tos, but I learned that in water bath canning you only do like fruits, or Garth says eggs, he did eggs, but you don't do meats or vegetables. And then they have pressure canning, which is different than pressure cooking. And I also learned that if you're fermenting, of course bacteria is what helps it ferment, but they said that cell phones, Wi-Fi, any type of signal like that actually kills bacteria that you're trying to grow for the fermenting process. And so if that happens, you actually end up with mold instead of a fermented product. So if you're going to be doing fermenting, you have to make sure that it doesn't have the bacteria killed by that signal, basically, from cell phones and computers and things like that, which I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if I'll end up doing fermenting, at least that's not top of my list. I am excited about learning canning. They do have a class that they're going to be offering. They don't have the date yet, but I signed up saying I was interested, so we'll learn the techniques on that, and we'll see how it goes. So as I mentioned in a different video, I had gone to a homesteading kind of overview class a few weeks ago, and they offered consultations, and they would come to your home and help you determine, like where a good place for a garden would be, or different things like that. So I actually have a consultation in the next 15 minutes, and I'm excited to learn, just some of the things here that I could be doing and how to implement them. So I will have more for you soon. So I just had the consultation with the person that was going to teach me about my land and things I can have, and she shared so much information. I want to record myself remembering as much as possible so that I can kind of implement what she had mentioned. First of all, the east side of our home is great for trees, and she recommended apple, peach, pear, and cherry. Underneath it, you could plant elderberry. Along our fence line would be great for blackberry bushes or raspberry bushes. She had recommended on the north side of the house to create a windbreak, and hazelnut trees are perfect for that because they won't be more than about 15 feet tall, but of course provides hazelnuts, and it just is easy to take care of. In terms of the fruit trees, she recommended either semi-dwarf because they're super easy to take care of. They're no more than 15 feet tall, but they don't get overloaded with fruit, or dwarf trees, but you have to prop up the limbs because they get so heavy with fruit that the limbs would break, and it would cause too much damage to the trees for them to be able to survive. She said that the soil that we have by a barn that is somewhat dilapidated, and it's the soil all around there is wonderful. So when I plant the trees, she recommends that I use soil from there to fill in, to give it the nutrition that it needs. And the barn also has really old hay that has decomposed some, and it has a lot of nutrition in there. So when I start a garden, she recommends putting some of that on top of the soil, and then by the trees using that as well. She said that was a gold mine of nutrition. And then on the kind of south side of the house is where she recommends planting a garden, and we could do in-ground garden or raised bed garden. And if we use raised bed, she recommends putting in either cardboard, leaves, twigs, things like that would help like retain some of the moisture, because when you have a raised bed, apparently you lose more of your moisture versus planting in ground. But since I'm so new at what I'll be doing, a raised bed might be easier. And the things that I want to grow, she recommends planting by basically May, so that we have crops through the summer. And there was just so much, like we talked about chickens and how to have chickens. We have a house that's already ready to go for chickens, and you can kind of create a little area for them to walk through to get to the grass where you would have them graze. She recommended planting, I think, millet or another grain. I have to go back and ask, that they can just eat as they go along too. You don't even have to harvest it. They can harvest it for you. Probably won't go through to sheep anytime soon, but they would help with the lawns. We wouldn't have to mow. They could eat it. But if we do use a lawnmower, you keep the clippings and you use it again to turn into mulch. And she talked about the soil in different areas where some of it is excellent. Some of it you don't necessarily want to use as much because you go down a little bit and there's clay. But she said along the fence line is amazing in terms of a lot of the soil there too. And she recommended maybe planting some berry bushes around there as well. So there's so much to know. She talked about different types of trees, different types of birds, you know, when we have chickens, all different kinds of things. So there's so much to remember, but those are the basics that I got for now. So we'll see. I think I'm going to start with some trees and go from there. So I just got back from the free range store where I attended the gardening class that they had. And to be honest, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. I know I want to have a garden, and there's so much to know. I know they talked tonight about types of seeds, types of soil, where to plant in terms of how much sun to get, covering things with nets or tarps or row covers, or not doing that, or what to do about bugs and rodents and different things. And I'm just feeling like there's so much to know, and hopefully I'll be able to understand exactly what should be done. I had decided to do a raised bed garden, and so from what I learned tonight, that's probably the easiest to do here. They were talking about what can be directly planted and what needs to be planted inside and then transplanted, and how you could do companion planting and not just having, one type of thing in one area. But still just understanding all of the things. I guess I'm just feeling a little bit overwhelmed, but I still am excited to start a garden. I want to have things that I can grow for my smoothies even. I would like to maybe do some carrots or cucumbers, maybe some spinach or kale, beets, potentially, maybe even some lettuce or different things for salads. I'm not sure. I just need to figure out what I want to start with, but I'll probably just pick a couple things because I don't want to get in over my head. I know Garth and I are going to get some trees too. We're going to probably plant trees first because, of course, that takes a lot longer to get established. They said this is a good time to plant the trees. So tomorrow I'll probably start digging some holes so we can prepare the ground to get the trees in, and figuring out exactly what we want to plant. But I don't know, just starting. Like I said, I'm just going to document what I'm learning, and anyone wants to join along with me and give me tips, that would be great. If you also just kind of want to learn through my own experiences, that's great too. But if you are an expert, or you've done this a lot and you have some ideas, especially for like the Tennessee area, that would be great. Leave your information for me. I'd really appreciate it. So as I said in a video yesterday, we went to Tractor Supply. We were going to look for trees, and they did have some apple trees there, but we weren't sure if they were resistant to the apple cedar rust. And when we asked the girl there, she wasn't sure what that even was. And when we looked it up, they gave some varieties that would be good, and it doesn't look like, that they had them at that store. So we drove over to a local nursery. They actually were closed. Usually they're open, so we're not sure why they were closed. And then today, on Sunday, they were also closed, which a lot of businesses here are closed on Sundays. So we figure that's probably just like their normal closure. So we'll have to check another time. But the first thing that we wanted to be doing was planting some trees here. Of course, those will take a few years to actually produce fruit, but they said now's the time to really get some trees planted. So we're looking at doing maybe apples, peaches, maybe cherry, not sure. And then I think we might do some berry bushes along the edge of the fence line. As I had said before, we had someone come look at our soil, look at the land, and where is best to plant. And she had said that a lot of the good soil kind of ended along that fence line, and it would be good to plant something there as well to keep the soil there, and not have it kind of slide down the mountain. So in the long run, we'll probably be doing that too. Rebecca found elderberry on sale on Facebook Marketplace, some cuttings. So we bought those. Garth and I just put some water for them to soak. They have to soak at least 24 to 48 hours, but because the threat of frost here is for a few more months, we're actually going to try the indoor, trying to get it to work. So we'll see how that goes. Again, there's so much to learn. Again, I had said in a prior video, this whole concept of gardening and planting and things is a little bit overwhelming, but I am still excited to figure out some of these things. And one other thing we want to figure out is also composting. A lot of what I've been reading says to have your own compost is really good for your garden, and of course feeding the trees. So that's another thing that we will be learning. So again, my whole thing about this channel is just sharing what I'm going to be learning, maybe the failures I may have, successes I may have too, and get your tips and feedback as well, and like learn what it's like to do these things, because of course living in Southern California, I didn't really have the opportunity. So on goes the story.